And we're live.
Thank you. Welcome everyone today. This is Bernie Wolfsdorf, your host, managing partner of Wolfsdorf Rosenthal Immigration. My friend and colleague, Patrick Findaro, the President and Business Development Director for Visa Franchise, is also with us today. We are going to give folks a minute or two to log in so that we have a complete group today. We are going to be talking about the E2 Treaty Investor Visa, and one of the options for E2 Treaty investors is to purchase a franchise. This is sort of a packaged model, and I'm therefore very pleased to have with us today Patrick Findaro, very knowledgeable, very, very experienced. I will briefly introduce myself. My name again is Bernie Wolfsdorf. I'm the former national president of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. We have 6 offices in Wolfsdorf Rosenthal, and we have been in operation for over 34 years. And it is a pleasure to speak with you all today. A little bit about our firm. Our firm was formed over 34 years ago. We're currently ranked Band 1 for California. There are only 2 Band 1 firms in California. So we are literally the highest ranked firm in California. And we are also Tier 1 US News and World Report. So we have all the badges one would need. But of more interest today, there's my friend Patrick Findaro, Business Development Director. Patrick works together with his brother Jack, and I've known Patrick for a few years. Just to be very, very clear, I don't work for Patrick, and Patrick doesn't work for me. Visa Franchise is a separate entity. I mentioned that from the point of view that we are immigration lawyers. We do not recommend investments. The only reason is I'm not qualified to recommend investments because I'm not an investment advisor. I'm an immigration lawyer. Patrick, however, is knowledgeable, is skilled in this arena. And he's going to fill you in today on the option of doing an E2 visa via investment in a franchise. Obviously, that makes a lot of sense because it's a package. The other option, of course, is an individual could come over and start their own business from scratch without the help of a professional, but that is going to be obviously a lot more difficult. Patrick, can you jump in right now and tell us a little bit about Visa Franchise?
Bernie, thanks a lot for that.
Welcome today.
Thanks a lot for the intro and kicking it off. And it's great to have all the participants on. It seems like more people are settling and joining in. A little bit about Visa Franchise. We're based in the Miami area, actually Miami Beach, right off Lincoln Road. We have offices in Shanghai, Mexico City, as well as Istanbul, Turkey. All we do is find and analyze businesses, principally franchises, that might be eligible for the E2 investor visa. We've advised clients from over 50 different countries, and we've had 300 plus clients to date. We've been doing this as Visa Franchise over the last 5 years. And before that, my brother and I, the 2 co-founders, we had experience working in franchise investments, as well as Jack worked for one of the largest franchisors in the world that owns Burger King, Tim Hortons, and Popeyes. So we really know franchising, and the last 2 years we've really exclusively focused on the E2 visa investor world.
Very helpful, Patrick. Thank you. Just to ask you a basic question. So I know you're going to present various different franchise options and explain why franchise works. Let's assume I'm not interested in a franchise. I
Sure.
want to set up my own business. Are you in a position to provide advice and help people in that situation outside the scope of the franchise?
Yeah, great question, Bernie. So, I mean, if you're set with a concept, an idea that you want to start, we want to be the best person to help with. It might be better to work directly with like a business plan company or a consultant that helps with startups. We do work with quite a few families that someone will do a startup, and the thing is, if the startup does really, really well, you might sell the business and make a lot of money, which in case you lose the visa. And if that startup doesn't do so well, you close the business and lose the visa. So we do have a lot of clients where it's a couple and one of them does a franchise and one of them does a startup. But going back to the original question, if you just want to, if you're set on doing a startup, unfortunately, that's not our focus, and there's
Got
better
it.
advisors out there to help you.
I just wanted to be exactly clear because we see different models within the E2 framework, and people be 100% clear on the scope of services. Since a lot of people are just diving in again, just start again from the beginning. We are going to focus today on E2 treaty investor visas, and we are also dealing with the franchise visa option presented by Patrick Findaro. My name again is Bernie Wolfsdorf, managing partner of Wolfsdorf Rosenthal. This one says that I can fly without wings. This says that we're the greatest thing since sliced bread. And of course, sorry, on a serious note, pardon my pretty weak humor. This is Patrick. He's a franchise, and he's going to fill you in on various options. So I just went back again to recoup because a whole bunch of people just joined.
Exactly.
Our outline today, number one, what are the eligibility basics? How do you qualify for this e-visa? Now, let me tell you, the e-visa is absolutely my favorite visa within the context of US immigration. There are over 80 countries. Actually, one or two got kicked off. So maybe let's just stick with 80. There's about 80 countries for which...
The map behind me has the countries.
There you go. There's the countries. Pick your poison, right behind Patrick. So, pardon me being silly. So we will cover the basic eligibility requirements. That's, of course, legal, so that's my job. Patrick, who's the business guy here, he's going to advise you on what the characteristics of a COVID-resilient E2 visa business. As is obvious, the world has kind of changed dramatically. And Patrick is specifically focusing on what type of businesses can advise you what to be looking for in the context of this new reality that we live in. He will then talk about business recovery by industry. We'll run through some E2 visa business case studies, and then I will briefly talk about the issue of converting E2 visas to green cards. What is a green card? Well, a green card is a permanent residence visa, the right to live in America for your entire life, and after 5 years, generally the right to apply to become an American citizen. So Patrick's going to cover literally topics 2, 3, 4. I'll deal with 1 and 2. And by the way, we are going to entertain questions. So please click onto your chat functions and fire away with any questions you have. If you need to reach me now or in the future, we'll give you the contact information. My email address is my name, Bernard, with the @ sign in the middle, wolfsdorf.com. So, okay, here we go. This chart shows us most of the non-immigrant work visas and the green card options. Now, there have been numerous laws, travel bans, COVID-related travel bans, other restrictions put in place on immigration. However, there are two categories, and I won't get into all the details of the whole framework of immigration. Of course, our office handles the whole framework. I'm just focusing today on the investment options. And the beautiful news is, in terms of the work visa options, the E1 and the E2 are not banned. The door is open. The door is wide open. Consulates are reopening starting actually today, July 15. And that varies from country to country, depending on the scope of COVID in that country. But consulates are formally opening up. In regard to the E1 and E2, many consulates are currently accepting applications, meaning you can prepare them, you can submit them, they will review them. Toronto, for example, is accepting and reviewing. To my knowledge, they're not scheduling appointments yet, but we expect to see that happen really soon. Of course, in emergency situations, they may well consider appointments at this time. The other option where the door is completely open, and by the way, I'm focusing primarily on people who are outside the United States, because at the moment there's different rules for people who are outside versus inside. The EB5 category, which is the investor green card, is currently open. So the super important part of this is that despite the various restrictions, the US government gets it. Investor visas categories are open, and the reason why is very simple. Investors bring jobs and capital. And America, like everybody, wants jobs and capital. So these are highly favored visas. All right, there's the lucky list. If you are sometimes in immigration, we want to know where you're born. For E2 purposes, we are not interested in where you're born. We are interested in what passport you have. And today, many nationals have more than one passport. Dual citizenship is fine. The United States government has no problem with dual citizens. So let's assume hypothetically that you were born in the People's Republic of China. Or let's assume hypothetically you were born in India. You will note none of these countries are on the list. Or you were born in South Africa or Russia. And you want to get an E2 visa. You don't want to spend the $900,000 or $1 million that it's going to cost you to do the investor green card outside your budget. Or you don't want to wait the 3 years, 2 to 3 years it can take to process an investor green card. You want to start your business in America now, in the next 60 to 90 days. Or hypothetically, you're on a student visa and you're having problems being able to study. There are issues with regard to you being able to remain in the United States, and you have one of these passports. You are on a Polish passport. You're on a Swedish passport. And you've decided you don't want to study anymore, or your F1 work permit optional OPT is expiring. What do? Well, one option is to start a business. If you're the 50% owner of that business, and by the way, you'll see I change this all the time, and you invest somewhere in the region of $150,000, maybe I'd take less. Of course, it's what the government would take. I don't take it. It's your investment. But maybe I would accept less in terms of the amount that you invest. So if you have one of these passports, you are eligible to apply for an E2 treaty investor visa, which is valid for a period of up to 5 years in most cases, but renewable. I've had clients on E2 visas for 25 years. They don't want green cards. Why? Well, there are tax consequences to having a green card. Once you have a green card, you're taxable on worldwide income. Many people don't want that. Many people don't want to spend 12 months in the US. They only want to spend 3 or 4 months in the US to run their business, come and visit, because they also are running a business in the old country. So I mentioned several countries: India, China, Russia, South Africa, countries that are not on this list. The question is, why do I have Grenada and Turkey in green? Why have I picked on these two countries? Well, here's the reason. If you do not have a passport from one of the countries which automatically makes you eligible, you can obtain a passport in Grenada or Turkey through what we call CBI, citizenship by investment. Now, there's a lot of citizenship by investment. You can get a passport from numerous countries, but that won't help you get a US E2. Now, I won't go into the specifics of these programs. Both of these countries basically have provisions where you either make a substantial cash investment in Grenada, they reduced the amount recently, or you buy a condo there. And in Turkey, pretty much the same. You buy real estate in Turkey, or you invest a certain amount of money in Turkey, and you can get a Turkish passport or Grenada passport. Now, most people aren't going to do this, but a few people may. So either you have the correct passport, or you're going to acquire one of those two passports. And if you're on this call and you're not one of these countries, you're probably not going to get a lot of valuable information, because the E2 is only for people who are nationals with passports of these various countries, or can acquire a passport of these countries. There is one more on this list, which is actually Montenegro. But that program is like €1 million or something. It's way too expensive. It's nutty. Doesn't work for me. And there are other programs as well.
It's not a 5-year E2 as well. I think it's like a 1 year.
That's a very, very good point, Patrick, for reminding. And so what is Patrick saying? It's only a 1-year E2. Now, there's something called a reciprocity schedule. And if those countries give Americans 5-year visas, then America gives them. So just going through that point which Patrick raised, Austria's 5 years, I believe Bangladesh, Belgium, most of these countries are 5 years, but some of them are only 1 year, which is a pain because you have to renew them all the time. So we don't really push the Montenegro program. We do push the Grenada program, and we do push the Turkish program. Today, I probably prefer the Turkish program a little bit, just because, you know, Grenada is a country with 150,000 people, and Turkey is, you know, well, what can I say? It's Turkey. It's a pretty amazing country. If you've never been there, you need to go. It's incredible. So, all right, let's fast forward to the requirements. What do you need to do? Firstly, I mentioned point one already, is that you have the correct nationality. You have the correct passport. The second one is, well, okay, you know, you start a business and, you know, you're not the 100% owner. You have a partner, and that partner has different nationality. So the company must be at least 50% owned by nationals of your treaty. So if I'm from Germany and I have a German passport and I own 50% of that company, I like 51, but 50 can work, then I can apply for this E2. Who else can apply for the E2? Well, technically speaking, anybody with German nationality can apply. You can apply as a principal investor, but they could also be eligible as a manager, supervisor, or person with essential skills. So in the hypothetical that I have, if I'm a German national, I open up a company and I want to bring in 3 managers to help run this company, technically I could do that. If, however, one of those managers was Austrian, he or she would not be eligible for the E2. So we need
Bernie,
to
just a compliment if I could for a second. We have had quite a few clients where it's like the principal applicant, the spouse, the brother-in-law, and like a wider family, and they come in as managers or investors, and that's where the strategy is really on your firm side, where they might need to invest in a couple franchises, but you can have like a larger family move, not just the nuclear family move over.
And I think that's really important for people to know. Let's deal with the hypothetical. What if I am from Germany, but my kid is 22 or 25? But my kid has been working in my company in Germany for the last 3 or 4 years and really knows the business. I may be able to get an E2 as a principal investor. My kid may also qualify as a key employee. So thank you, Patrick, for that, because there's a lot we can do with the E2. You can bring in, so you're 2 partners from Germany. You have a business. You partner with an American. As long as the German nationals control more than 50% of that company, you should be eligible for the E2. So let's move on to point number 2. Point number 2 is the most complicated one. They have to make a substantial investment. Now, I've done a lot of these E2 panels with different lawyers, and I love asking the question, what is the minimum amount you've ever succeeded in getting an E2 on? And I get some interesting answers. Some lawyers will go as low as $50,000 to $75,000 as a change of status in the US. Some of those cases get approved. But, maybe I'm a little bit conservative, but you invest $50,000 to $75,000. And when I use the word invest, I don't mean the word put it in a bank account. It is correct that there is a procedure that if you're buying an existing business, it is possible to have an escrow agreement where the only outstanding provision is issuance of the visa. So you will purchase the business subject to issuance of the visa. Visa is not issued, the deal doesn't go through. That is not particularly favored. The US government wants you to invest your money. I use the word burn, not an abbreviation of my name, Bernie. I want you to burn the money. No, not in a basket. I want you to spend the money. I want a spreadsheet. I want to see receipts for everything you've invested, your airline ticket, your lunch, your breakfast, your hotel, your legal fees, of course. All are counted in terms of making the investment. People say to me, oh, but I can't spend $150,000. And I'm like, okay, so how much have you spent in the last 6 months doing research? How much have you spent? I suddenly find they've already spent $50,000. So it's an interesting one, but here's my bottom line. Today, in today's climate, and there's something called BAHA, Buy American, Hire American. It's a Trump policy to favor America. I kind of want to see 150 to 200,000 to work. If you put in 100, maybe yes, maybe no. Put in 90, maybe yes, maybe no. If you're desperate and you've only got 85 and you've got a brilliant business plan, and you've already signed a contract with Amazon or Walmart or somebody big, maybe I'd look at it. But I'm going to try and push you to 150 to 200. Spending a lot of time on that because it's an important issue. So I mentioned that I could bring in potentially other people of the same nationality. There's the principal investor. I can also bring in an executive, losing my voice, an executive manager or employee with special skills. The employee with special skills is more difficult because they often want to see that as temporary. But at the end of the day, remember the E2 is not only for the principal investors, it's for other people with the same passport. The spouse of the E2, by the way, principal investor, the spouse also gets a work permit. It takes a few months, and that is an unrestricted work permit. So there's enormous strategy options there, because the spouse can literally apply for a work permit and work wherever they want in any industry. So here's the one stickler. This is the rock in the road. This is the obstacle. This is what you have to meet to succeed in the long term for an E2. It's not enough that that business merely makes enough money for you to earn a living. So if the business plan, and we love to have business plans, we almost require a business plan for new businesses unless it's already got a whole bunch of employees, etc. But you have to show that that business is not going to make enough money just to support the investor. So if my business only earns $50,000 profit a year, and that's what it costs to support my family, I may not get an extension. So be careful. They want you to make a significant economic contribution. So if you're doing an E2, my main office is in Santa Monica, probably about as far away from Patrick as possible, but he does come and visit quite often. I haven't got to Florida. I'm going there one day. But the simple bottom line is, when you are making a business, it is very helpful to get a letter, for example, from a local chamber of commerce or business entity that this, so maybe it's a small franchise, but maybe it's in an area which is depressed or blight or something. And if that business is in an area where it's providing jobs, maybe they would be generous with a smaller investment. Now the final one. This is a tricky one as well. Real and operating business. So everybody comes to me and they say, I have a fantastic idea. And I say, well, I like your idea. But if the company is not real and operating, I can't get you an E. It's not based on an idea. It's based on the fact that you've spent the money, you've incorporated, you have a premises, and that's where the franchise thing comes in, because you've got a packaged business. We know this is a real business. It can be hard to start a business in America. This place is quite competitive. Okay, requirements and considerations. I'm going to go through my stuff quickly, and then we're going to learn from Patrick, how do we get this done? The investor must own 50% or more, and they have to develop and direct the business. Now, the difference between EB5 Regional Center and E2 is that for EB5 Regional Center, you have to be involved in the business a little bit. For E2 Principal, you have to direct and develop the business. So if you're not living in the same place as the business, you may have to explain why. Well, I have a manager. I'm still directing and developing it. I don't have to be physically there behind the counter, but they want to see you running the business. I've already mentioned the word substantial. I do it twice because I want it to stick. So you can open a new business or purchase an existing business. There is a danger in purchasing existing businesses because there's a reason that person wants to sell. What is that reason? We don't know. The advantage of a new business is a lot of people come and they say, look, I don't trust other business people. I only trust myself. Well, then open a new business is the right way. I've already mentioned that it cannot be marginal, only to support yourself. And I've already mentioned that job creation is really important. Sigh, got to take a breath. So the E2 is not really required or supposed to be used as a way to immigrate. So if you go into your E2 visa and say, look, I want to retire in America, I'm going to try this E2 thing. And I'm like, that may not work. Or no, I really want to just live in America. The whole idea is you're coming to America, pardon me, to do business, to create jobs, and create economic opportunity for America. There's also a visa called E1, which involves substantial trade. That's a different thing. We're not really talking about it today. Okay, how does this thing work? Let's talk about the procedures. Number one, you schedule appointments at the consulate abroad. Generally, if you're in the US in lawful status, we can also change your status, including by premium processing with 2-week decisions. So technically, you could be on an F1 OPT, which expires in 2 months' time, and you're panicking, or you didn't get selected in the H-1B lottery, or you're not an O1 extraordinary ability, or something else, or you just got laid off from your employer. You're on an H-1B, you just got laid off from your employer, but you've saved $150,000, you don't want to go back. What can you do? You could change status to E2, and you get a 2-year work permit, which can be extended 2 years at a time. When you travel abroad, you have to apply for an E2 visa. That is a separate procedure. So we normally recommend that you apply for the E2 visa first and not do the change of status. However, in the COVID era, we're now going in a different direction. It is better to file for a change of status in the US because consulates are only reopening as of today and pretty much only in emergency circumstances as well. But the president has given instructions as of July 15, consulates are starting to reopen. Most consulates will take a few weeks or a few months to review. So, Bernie, you've got me confused. Do I change my status in the US or do I apply at the consulate? Well, at the moment, I'm recommending both. First, you change status in the US if you have lawful status based on this business. And then, in order to be able to travel abroad, you submit the package to the consulate, they approve it, you go for an interview, you get your E2. That's your E2 visa stamp in your passport, as opposed to your E2 status, which is permission to remain in the US for up to 2 years. And let's assume you never want to go home. You're going to stay in America for the rest of your life. Well, actually, you don't even have to apply for the visa. I just keep extending it every 2 years. It's a bit of a pain. Better to get the visa. So the consulate reviews this application and supporting documentation, schedules an interview, you go in, you pick up your visa. All right, what are the advantages of the E2? Very quickly now, up to 5 years is the visa period, but as I explained, every time you enter the US, you get authorized stay of 2 years. The easiest way to extend that is to make sure you travel every 2 years. Usually takes 2 to 3 months. Children can attend government schools or private schools. Here's the beauty, folks. I like bragging that one of the things I do is I provide advice to the University of California, all 10 campuses. And once you've been on an E2 for a certain period of time, your parents are here paying taxes, you can get in-state tuition. Wow. How much are you going to save? About $20,000, $30,000 a year. Each child, 4 years. You are potentially saving hundreds of thousands of dollars if your kids are studying on E2s and qualify for residency. They usually won't qualify in their first year, by the way. You could be in the United States 100% of the time, or you could have tax considerations and potentially not be in the US so as to trigger the substantial presence test. That's a little complicated. It's a 3-year look back. So I won't get into the tax too much today, but the E2 is a whole lot better for tax planning than is the green card. Spouse can obtain unrestricted work permit. I've said it once, but it's worth saying again. There's no quota. You just have to come from the right country. So I want to give Patrick some time here. You're almost done with me. This is a sort of brief chart. I've explained that you can file with USCIS if you are in the US. 15 days premium processing, you've got your E2. If you need to go to the consulate, you have to file this DS 160. forms and the E2 forms, and every consulate has different rules. Some of them allow 70 pages, 40 pages. It's quite silly how they each have their own rules. You attend your interview, enter the US on your E, and start working. So either you do this first step with the form I-129, change your status from B1 business visitor, F1 OPT, H1B, whatever it is, you're in lawful status, you change in the US, you get your approval. If you want your stamp, you have to file this DS-160, go abroad and have an interview. Now we cross over to the other side. Suppose you want a green card. Suppose your spouse is working somewhere and the employer is ready to sponsor them. So they would then file the form I-140 for your spouse. Once that's been approved, all of you could apply for green cards. So can you file the form I-140 for yourself? Generally not, because most of these require sponsorship, employment sponsorship. I'm not spending a lot of time on green cards. There is a way to convert an E2 to an EB5 if you have 10 full-time employees. That's a separate topic. We'd need another hour or two for that. We don't have it today. So we're just going to stick with E2s. All right, let's do some little comparison here. The E2 visa, employment authorization is automatic and immediate. With a regional center, that's an EB5 case. It says 3 to 4 months after you file the 485. It can actually take 5 months nowadays. So the nice thing about the L1 and the E2 is the work permit. L1 is the company transfer visa. This only works if you have a large company abroad and you have a fairly large company in the US. Doesn't work nicely for small companies. I caution all of you. Be careful of the L. The L's are getting hit hard. The E2s are actually going pretty well. So work authorization is immediate on the E and the L. Can the investment be a gift? Well, if it is a legitimate gift, yes. If your father gifts you $150,000, yes, it's okay. If you're giving $150,000 to your boyfriend, girlfriend, or partner, they want to believe it's a real gift. So that's why I say it's an issue. Yes, it's okay on the L1 and it's okay on the green card. Can the investment funds be a loan? So for an E2, you cannot use the assets of the business as a loan in order to, so you cannot collateralize the business as the source of funds for your E2. You have
Bernie, this ties into one of the questions. We're going to really hold to the end. We have a lot of great questions, but we have a participant that is looking to buy a business at $600,000, $200,000 down, and the balance seller financing. So how does the substantial investment and this requirement work? Because they're going to be getting 50% plus seller financing.
Yeah, but as long as you're not, as long as the asset is not secured by the asset of the business. So if the seller wants to carry this personally, fine. But the business cannot carry the debt. That is not permitted. So thank you for bringing that up. There are a lot of issues with regard to, this issue is actually being litigated. And excuse me, it was actually my case that got litigated. And it's in a state of flux right now in context of EB5. So we're still going with no for the EB5. In regard to the E2, if somebody is buying a business for $600,000, they're putting $200,000 down, and the balance of $400,000 is being carried by the seller, not secured by the assets of the business. Might be okay. Not a clear cut. I'd want to know, where's the person coming from? Where are they applying? $200,000 is a substantial investment in my mind. I think that's a winner of a case. So I like it. but we probably need to schedule a consult to talk about how that deal is structured specifically. Okay, let's talk about Expedite. Premium processing is available for both the L1 and the E2 change of status, that is, 15 days. Are they available in the EB5 context? Well, technically, yes, but very few in reality. So let's move over. We've had enough of Bernie Wolfsdorf for now, and we are moving over to Patrick. And by the way, Patrick, thanks for butting in and asking questions as we go along. I don't have access to the questions, so we'll
do the same thing for me.
Well, yeah, no, I that's my problem, by the way, always butting in. So, Patrick, tell us why, and let's talk about these three options. Franchise, which of course is your specialty, so I assume that's something you're going to like. Purchasing an existing business, certainly an option for the E2. And the third option is starting a new business. And tell us what the pros and cons of these three options are for a prospective investor in the United States.
Sure. So the majority of our clients at Visa Franchise really prioritize the longevity of the business and getting some profits out of the business rather than short-term profitability and selling the business for a huge profit. And a lot of them really want to lean on someone to help provide initial and ongoing support, and the franchisor can really fill that gap. So many of pretty much all our clients will buy an existing franchise business, but generally they're going to be investing more money, like $250K, 300,000 plus, or they start a new franchise business from zero where they're investing 100 to 300,000. And as Bernie mentioned, the ones that are investing 100, 150K, or sorry, 130K, generally they're having more issues at the consulate level interviews, and it causes a lot more tension in the whole process between the immigration attorney, the franchisor, and all parties involved, because the petition needs to be that much more airtight.
Patrick, it's probably my hearing that's not good or my bad microphone. Can you just up the volume a little closer to the mic, maybe?
How is it? Is it better now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll talk a little closer to the mic. So franchises, going through some of the pros here. Support from the franchisor, as I mentioned. Existing businesses can be great. The issue, as I mentioned, with an existing business, it's hard to find a successful existing business for sale at a reasonable valuation. So someone commented 600,000. That's typical for existing businesses that have pretty good profitability. Most of our clients at Visa Franchise for an E2 visa do not want to invest more than 300,000 as an initial investment. And then there's the issue with fraudulent financials, where you have to engage a CPA and or corporate attorney to do due diligence every single time you analyze an existing business for sale. And this can be costly.
I want to pop in on that one, Patrick, because one of the reasons I reached out to you is that I once spoke to a business broker, and I said, how do you find an honest business broker? And please, I don't want to offend any business brokers on here, but they said it's so dangerous because, quite frankly, if you don't have an audited financial, those financials probably aren't worth anything. And I think to get a proper audited financial is like extremely expensive, right?
I think it's like 5K to 10K if you want to have it audited. And then there's ways to do it for less, but it's not to the top standard.
Got it. Sorry for interrupting, but I've always been afraid of, I don't even working with business brokers because it's kind of scary. We don't know what's in under there. The nice thing about a franchise is it's clean, it's new, and if it goes wrong, it's probably partially or substantially the fault of the investor. Sorry for interrupting, Patrick.
No, thanks. And I think we can go to the next slide. Move right along, if you don't mind.
All righty. So here we go. What are we looking for in the COVID arena?
Sure. Just quickly go through this. our analysts here in Miami have gone through over 2,900 businesses to date. They're all franchise and licensed businesses. And the factors that we're most focused on today is analyzing the profitability at the unit level, so at the franchisee level, as well as the franchisor. Is the franchisor, do they have solid income statement and balance sheet to be around for the next years to support your business? Recurring revenues. So this would be like a real estate property manager or a commercial cleaning franchise, where every month you can expect to have that same client paying a certain amount. A high margin business, it really varies, but it could be like a barber shop where the barber shop owner basically is keeping 50%, and then the barber keeps 50% of every sale. Relatively high gross margin. And then management team, who's behind it? If it's on the franchisor level, what's their experience? How do they weather the last economic crisis in 2008, 2009? And also looking at industry and brand growth. I'll go through some of the industries briefly, and then strong liquidity to weather the current crisis. So here are some of the industries with compelling business opportunities, and it really varies. There are, when you break out each of these industries, whether it's fast food restaurants or education, there are winners and losers in terms of sub-industries. And just looking at beauty, for example, barbershops, you do see in a lot of states, people are going back every 4 weeks, 6 weeks. I need to start going back. And I'll go next week. But people are resuming that habit. Where if you look at things that beauty related, where maybe a nail salon, are people necessarily going back at the same rate as before? From our analysis, no. You know, a 30% drop, 40% drop can have a huge effect on a single franchise. So I think we can go to the next slide, where I want to talk a little bit about a fast food restaurant sub-industry or phenomenon we're seeing, which are ghost kitchens, or our folks in dialing in the UK or Europe, dark kitchens, which have been around for quite some time, especially out of London, where you have 5, 10, 15 restaurants all operating under a common space, where they have a very large industrial kitchen, and they're just doing takeout and delivery. Some of the takeout and delivery apps are recording 80%, 100% increase in sales year over year. A lot of the franchisors that we work with, and the ones that are most advanced in terms of looking and innovating on opportunities for their franchisees, have really dived into this, where there are multiple ghost kitchen operators, including the founder of Uber, that left Uber, and he founded a ghost kitchen company, which is opening up locations across the US and world. So where you have an initial investment of $500,000, $1 million for a restaurant and 20 employees, with a ghost kitchen, you could have 3 employees and invest between $150,000, $300,000. And with that, you have a lot of money in terms of working capital, marketing, to really get the business going.
Well, Patrick, just to pipe in here, these ghost kitchens are definitely red hot right now. I mean, the reality is we order, from them all the time, because my wife doesn't do much cooking and I don't either. Just one question. Does the kitchen come together with the ghost, or is that separate? All right, Bernie, stop being silly. Had to just break in with a little bit of my stupid humor. Patrick, 2008, 2009 was a scary economic crisis. What have you learned from that, and how can you assure your investors that we're not in the same sort of situation?
Sure. So all our clients at Visa Franchise, we're now offering going through the SBA analysis of that particular franchise industry. So you can really see what were the percentage of charged off loans, where the bank basically, it's essentially been a default, and then also paid in full, where they've lent out the money, and over a 7-year period, generally they receive all the money back. So we've gone through over 100,000 franchise loans, and this project started back in January of this year. for loans through the SBA to franchisees over the past 30 years. And we found that during the last real economic downturn, 2008, 2009, there was a doubling of the amount of defaults. And there were some sub-industries that were hit much harder than others. So this is the type of information we share with our clients and with our prospective clients, and online. We do share quite a bit of information, but we then take to the next level analysis and insight with our clients in Visa franchise.
What is this V curve and what is a U curve? Can you explain this to me? I'm a lawyer. I don't do math.
Yeah, so we got a lot of curves going on here, where I go through some of the possible business scenarios. So we're already seeing from the franchisors and our clients that have already invested in cleaning and maintenance, healthcare services, business services, really a nice rebound, where many of them are up at the same level, if not above, the pre-COVID-19 crisis, or when you look at the 2019 numbers. And some of them maybe just a 20% drop, which isn't that bad given the current environment we're in. And business services like insurance, accounting, things that you still need anyways. And then the healthcare is really split between, what you're operating in the healthcare space. And then education programs, you're seeing, especially after the parents have been with their kids now 24/7, a real desire or need for different educational programs for kids, whether it be coding and math and science supplemental education for kids, or right now in the summer, just education period.
So what's the U curve?
Yeah, a real quick U curve. These are the ones that it's going to take longer to recover. So food and beverage, real estate, pet care, boutique fitness centers. It's going to take longer for those industries. Real quick, Nike Swoosh. So really hard drop. I mean, if anyone's seen the travel, hotel, occupancy, airline stats, they're down like 90% plus depending on the company. And it's going to take a while to really recover, whether that happens in 2022 or 2023. So for those industries, you have to be prepared and have the liquidity and financial stability. And
what's
then
the L?
These are the L curve. These are the ones that people have become accustomed. So now doing Peloton and doing exercise, doing different fitness online and less on a very large fitness center, for example, or just buying products off Amazon, where e-commerce has skyrocketed. So will those businesses ever go back to their pre-COVID-19 levels? I don't know. Maybe.
Let's go into case, I'm here in Southern California, and I was surprised to read during all this COVID where you can't actually check out property, that property prices are actually going up. In the area where I live, there's been a significant increase. I guess people want to spend more time in their homes, and people need a place to stay, and real estate, I guess in certain parts of the US, continues to be strong.
Yeah, and I think you've noticed some dynamics where, maybe some of the crowd in SF might have had a second home in Southern California, and now they're remote work forever, or at least the next year. So we've seen that in New York, where a lot of New Yorkers coming down to Florida. So there has been an opportunity in property management for the short-term rentals, like anywhere from a few days to months at a time. And then also long-term has done pretty steady. This particular example is from a client that invested back in 2017 and had to really work hard to build up the business. If you could just go one slide back, he invested around $110,000, so on the lower end, and that included everything from working capital, franchise fees, spending money on Google AdWords, the company vehicle. He owns 100% of this franchise, and he had a lot of work the first year, but it paid off. He now has over 200 units located across LA County, and his business is booming with 200 units, where the average rental contract nationwide is over 2,000 for that franchise system. I'd bet LA County is more like 2,500, 3,000 per contract. So, if you wanted to sell that business today, you'd probably sell for $500,000. Part of the reason that most of our clients decide to start a franchise from zero, because they'd rather invest less money and then potentially have an exit later on, should their visa not be tied to the business. And then real quickly, we do have quite a lot of high net worth individuals where they have to travel a lot. They have businesses abroad. They're not able to work day to day in the business, but they do need to have a majority controlling stake in the business and be actively involved. So in this case, our client, they didn't have the E2 visa eligible passport. They invested in the island nation of Grenada through a real estate project, $220K, and then another $220K in the landscaping business. And with that, they are able to sustain their E2 visa, draw some profits of the business, and they have no plans to get a green card due to tax purposes.
Yeah, there's a certain client that I've had over the years, and I said this earlier, but I'm going to say it again. He just doesn't like to trust anybody, and even certain nationalities. They just don't want to trust other people with their money. So this is certainly a fantastic option for those folks who like to trust themselves. And I certainly get that as well. I like the fact that I am a majority shareholder in our own company. So if you want to summarize on this one, Patrick, your last slide.
Sure. Yeah, then I think we can go right over to the questions. So we're here principally to reduce your risk. We're not here to make you millions of dollars in the first couple of years of operation. Some of our clients have done extremely well, especially over a longer horizon, 3, 4, 5 years. We're here to analyze all the possible franchise opportunities, and we have pretty deep relationships in the franchise community. We know which franchisors are willing to have an E2 visa candidate and which ones might be open to having their first E2 visa candidate. And we help those conversations and convincing the franchisor to take our clients on as franchisees.
Very helpful, Patrick, really. Our company's 34 years old, and while previously I've not had the privilege of working with you, a lot of my clients individually decided to go with franchises as a source of their E2, and I've watched them over the years grow. Some of them we've been able to convert to EB5s because, they buy one franchise, the next thing they buy a second one, a third one, a fourth one, a fifth one. And quite frankly, a lot of our clients have done quite well with the visa franchise model because, quite frankly, they work hard. So questions you can...
you know what, Bernie, right before we go into the questions, maybe it'd be good just for 2 minutes to talk at a high level about once you're on an E2 visa, how could you get a green card, whether through the principal applicant or the spouse? And there were some questions about that as well.
Yeah. So, okay, I like to be very direct. A lot of people will say, well, I don't like the E2 because it doesn't lead to a green card. That statement is technically true, but no category leads to a green card. Nothing converts from a temporary work visa into a green card. The green card application is a completely separate process. And there's 3 basic ways to get a green card. Number 1, family immigration. What am I talking about? Well, you might fall in love with an American citizen. Good luck. If you're married, probably not your best option. So one option is through family immigration. Another one, I actually should call it 4 ways to get a green card, is there's a green card lottery. I call it stupid lottery, dvlottery.state.gov. dvlottery.state.gov. It's in October. Do it if you are eligible. But it's not a strategy, it's a lottery. Number 3, employment immigration. Well, you can't sponsor yourself unless you're a minority shareholder. So maybe your spouse has a work visa and she has an employer or he has an employer, and they can get job sponsorship. Or maybe your business has made a lot of money and you have hired 10 employees and you have invested $900,000 of your own money in that business, then we can convert it to an EB5. Or there are other self-sponsorship options. For example, there's the NIW, National Interest Waiver. If you have a bachelor's degree plus 5 years or master's degree. Folks, I can talk for 3 hours answering that question, how to convert an E2 to a green card. And I do, because I have clients calling me every day. So that is the entire smorgasbord of visa options: family, employment, investment, lottery, even asylum, political asylum. If you come from a country where you are being persecuted, you might be eligible for asylum because you can't go back home. So
yeah, no, we've had a few Venezuelan dual nationals go
well,
that
there you
route.
go. Yeah, the Venezuelan asylum cases, I'm sorry, they're a walk in the park. Because obviously these folks, or many of them, will have trouble going back. And Venezuela is an E2 country.
So Bernie, first question. Oh, I don't want to interrupt you. Sorry.
No, interrupt me, please.
Okay.
It's more fun that way.
So quick question. First question from Rick, actually. If you're looking to attain E2 visa through Grenada citizenship, how important is the nexus to Grenada? Would you advise clients to apply through donation or the investment?
Great question. Nexus. What is your connection? The other word that I like to use is ties. What are your not this tie? What are your ties to that place? So here's the story with Grenada. It's one of the reasons I prefer Turkey, actually. For Grenada, there's 2 ways to get the Grenada passport. One is you plunk down a pile of money, you make a donation, and you get a passport. The other one is you buy a condo, and you go there, and you take up scuba diving, because it's good, and you actually go there, you get an ID. So if you're going to apply for the E2 in Bridgetown, if you're going to apply for the E2 at the designated embassy for Grenada, Grenada doesn't have, the US embassy in Grenada doesn't do E's, you have to travel. So they want to see you have some ties as a rule. So there have been quite a few folks from China, for example, who they go to Grenada and they've only been there once to sort of, scratch that. They've never been there. And they go to Bridgetown to apply for their visa. It could be an issue. Those folks actually have been having a lot of success in China. We haven't done any recently, but Patrick, you have, and you were telling me yesterday about your great successes in Guangzhou. I've heard stories in Shanghai as well. So Chinese nationals have been able to get their E2 visa in China, but there's a caution, and I don't want to go into the weeds on this question because technically Chinese nationals are not allowed to have Grenada passports without surrendering. So that's also complicated. Patrick, next question.
Bernie, yeah, thanks. What if you're in the US on an H-1B? We actually got this a couple times. Can you change to an E2 without leaving the country? If so, what is the processing time?
15 days.
Okay.
So let's assume that you're on an H-1B. Your company's closing down. Your employer won't sponsor you for a green card, but you've been diligently saving your money. You come from Pakistan and not India. Why Pakistan, not India? Because Pakistan got the treaty and India didn't. So what if you are an Indian national on an H-1B? Well, the problem is that we're going to have to get the Grenada passport. We're going to have you leave we're going to have you enter on the Grenada passport, and then we can flip you over from the H. So if you are in the United States, you have to have the correct nationality. If you're doing this Turkey/Grenada thing, you actually have to leave and re-enter because you have to be in the country on the nationality for which you are seeking to change status. Next question, Patrick.
Bernie, could you have the spouse, say you have the H-1B or an O-1, or, could you have the spouse apply for the E-2 visa while you keep that visa category?
Wow, this is good. Who is ever asking that question, if it's you or somebody else. So here's a scenario. I'm on an H-1B and I'm working for Facebook and I've got a fantastic job and I'm from India. I'm on an Indian passport. My wife is on an Indian passport. So what do? I send my wife outside. Well, I don't send my wife. She always sends me. But my wife decides to go out of the US, makes a trip to Grenada, picks up a Grenadian passport. Is that correct? Grenadian passport? A passport from Grenada, re-enters on an H4. Actually, the H4 could technically still be in the old passport, but she re-enters on the new Grenadian passport. Now she's on an H4 status. We switch her over to an E2, and we switch you over to an E2. You never got a Grenada passport. You're still on an Indian passport, but you are the spouse of an E2 investor, and you are now eligible for unrestricted work authorization. Creative one, Patrick. Go. Next question.
What's the renovation for the E2 visa? Is it 2 years?
So if you change status in the US, it's approved for a period of 2 years and renewable indefinitely. But I'm going to repeat that story. In the example that I have, we've now got an Indian gentleman on a derivative E2 with work authorization. His spouse is on a Grenada passport. So if he travels, not a problem. He comes back in, but he would have to have the E2 visa stamped in his passport as a derivative. By the way, getting an E2 stamped as a derivative is a whole lot easier than doing it as a principal. We do a lot of those cases in Canada as third country nationals. Getting E2 derivative visas, relatively easy. Numerous posts will do it as long as we can show the principal's maintaining status. Next question, Patrick.
If the funds belong to my father-in-law, could I use those for the E2 visa?
So we've actually seen this pattern many times. Congratulations, Patrick, you married up. Your father-in-law is wealthy. That was another bad joke, by the way. But this person has married well, and his spouse has the money, and he doesn't. And daddy wants to help the couple get started. Yes. Basically, what dad is doing here is he's gifting to both parties. So I don't have a problem if the wife has the money. No problem. Gift is fine. Absolutely. Okay. Let's do it.
And then we have a H-1B holder who say has earned $150,000 as an employee in the US and then was laid off. Can they use that $150,000 earned in the US for the E2 investment?
Absolutely. For both E2 and EB5, the source of funds can be from within the US. The only issue you have is this. From the time you are laid off, you have up to 60 days of lawful status. You do not have 60 days. You have up to 60 days. So if somebody got laid off on an H, I would immediately, within 1 week, apply for a change of status to a B1 business visitor as a prospective investor. There's actually a category in B1 called prospective investor. So why not use it? Do not sit on your H without status because they may say you should have done that faster. So if you're getting laid off or have been laid off on an H, you move to your E2, B1 quickly, and then we flip you from the B1 to the E2. And of course, we're very straight lawyers. We tell the government everything. We say, hey, look, I just got laid off. I've saved up all this money. I'm going to do this business. I just heard about this guy, Patrick, and his thing. I'm doing some due diligence right now. Please give me a change of status to B1. I would even get a letter from you, Patrick. I would say, Mr. X has retained me.
We're doing that. We have a client that is needs access to travel to the US, and they're going to present a letter from us to the embassy.
Nice. So you can actually help people do the change of status to the prospective investor to show it's legit, and then they can switch over to the E2. Great question. Next, sir.
So we have a question. I am a Canadian on E2 employee visa. If I wish to convert this in an E2 investor visa for my new venture. So basically, E2 manager currently for another employer, they want to invest their funds and transition to an E2 investor visa. How streamlined can the process be? The spouse is working in the US as a dependent E2, and he doesn't want to affect her job.
So, yeah, interesting. Yeah, I like this one. So this is an employee E2 wants to move to a principal. It's a different animal. Here's how I would do it, because this is how I would do that case. Number one, I would file a change of employer, E2. So I would do the change in the US for the principal. My initial thought is that does not impact the work authorization of the derivative. We could leave the derivative out, but I probably would include the derivative. So I would do a change of status from E2 to E2. It's like, wait, Bernie, why is that a change? Well, it is because it's a change of employer. And I could file that premium processing 15-day approval. However, I would then also submit a copy of that package to the US consulate in Toronto. Why Toronto? Because Toronto is the only post that does new E's in Canada. Vancouver does renewals. Ottawa and Calgary will do derivatives, but only Toronto does new E's. So I would do the change of status first for the principal, kind of leave the spouse alone, and the principal would then have to go up and get a new E2 visa. I don't think the spouse would need a new E2 visa. She could keep her current job and her current visa. So interesting combination. We're at 1:13. We're going to go for another 2 or 3 minutes. How many questions do we have lined up, Patrick?
We have another 15 questions. So we can.
All right, I'll try and be faster and quicker.
No,
but
yeah.
That's not easy. I just like to respect everybody's time. And by the way, I will move to this slide so that you know how to contact Patrick. I'm going to repeat one more time a little disclaimer. This is not legal advice we're giving you today. If you need legal advice, you need to contact a lawyer. This is how you contact me, Bernard at Wolfsdorf. I do not work for Patrick. I do not get commissions from him. Patrick is somebody I met some years ago and kind of liked him. I thought he was a straight shooter, pretty smart guy. And it's kind of a helpful service to some of my clients, but do caution that that's a separate business enterprise. Patrick, next question, sir.
All right. So we have someone that has a few properties in the U.S. They made an LLC with family members. They've at least they've invested at least $500,000. What are the possibilities? They rent houses. They make money from the rent, obviously, and then they flip the homes.
So I'm glad you mentioned a few houses. The question is how many? I've seen this model about 1,000 times. I'll tell you one story. This is a case where this individual came over from Australia, bought a house, fixed it, bought a second house, went back to Australia, applied for E2 and got denied. This person had invested probably about $200,000-300,000. Buying one house and flipping it is not an E2 business. It's a fixer-upper business. And at the same time, we've got numerous people on E2s where they bought several houses. Another story along this lines. I have a friend of mine who's an immigration lawyer. He called me. His client was denied in London. They owned 2 buildings, one with 5 apartments, the other with 8 apartments. And the consulate denied it, said, no, this is a marginal little business. You're servicing a handful of apartments. You don't even have any employees. This is not a substantial investment. Goodbye. And got denied. What did I do? I told him, look, buy a 3rd building. Buy a bigger one. And they did. They bought another apartment building with 3. And this one had about 15 condos, went back and got the visa. So this is why I say the little rinky-dink fixer-upper one doesn't work. I did have a case, now I'm remembering, was an Italian case. This Italian gentleman, he bought a condo in New York for $10 million. Yeah, I guess you can do that. $10 million, and he was fixing it up. He pumped about 2 or 3 million into it. We got it approved. Eventually, we had trouble the first time around because we had to prove that that was a real business and not a single fixer-upper thing. They want to see a proper business. They want to see American jobs. They're not interested in you being a house flipper. Next.
If a family wants to sponsor multiple businesses through visas, is it better to have a big investment, like 500,000 to $1 million investment, or is it better to have a couple businesses and break out that investment?
Oh gosh, that's a hard question. It could be either, but whoever's asking this question has got the issue. Either it's going to be a big investment. So if you invest 150,000, you want to bring in 5 people, forget about it, generally speaking. So maybe it's better to split it up with different investors and have them as principals. The answer is I'd have to look at the business. I have to evaluate it. Both options are potentially viable, but the general rule is the more money you invest, the more foreign nationals you can bring in. Size definitely matters. Size is a big deal here. Well, I invested 150,000. I want to bring in 5 foreign workers. Again, forget about it. Next question, Patrick.
We have a Mexican with a tourist visa that plans to buy a franchise and run the business. Is it better to go with this plan and after 15 days do a change of status through USAS without the interview at the U.S. Embassy or consulate?
Well, right now, because consulates have been closed, we don't have a choice. But let's deal with the situation of a Mexican national. Mexican nationals are amongst the largest, most e-visas are given to Japan. Mexico's way up there. London, UK's way up there. But lots of Mexican nationals have been successful with the E2 investor visa in the US. If you came to the US on a B2, many Mexican nationals come in with border crossing cards. So you have to download your I-94. The question is, did you come as a B2 tourist or as a B1? Maybe you didn't tell anybody. But if somebody came as a B2, as a visitor, as a tourist, I'm here to see Disneyland, Mickey Mouse, it would be a gigantic mistake to file a change of status within 90 days. Repeat, if you came on a tourist visa and you filed a change of status within 90 days, you could be deemed to have lied or visa fraud. If you came on a B1 and they said, what is the purpose you visit? You say, I'm looking at franchise, looking at a business. Well, then I'm happy to file a change of status within about 60 days. I'd probably try to wait at least 60 days, but we can convert your status. But then before you get your visa, we have to send your case to the American consulate in Ciudad Juarez. Sorry about my bad pronunciation. I've spent so many days in Juarez, which is a primary post for new visa applicants in Mexico to apply. So simple bottom line is you can do a change of status. I would do that right now. When the consulates reopen and start processing, you can apply for your visa. Unfortunately, they changed the Mexican reciprocity schedule to 1 year. Yuck. But every time you enter, you get a 2-year authorized stay. Next question, Patrick. I see we're at 1:20. I think we're going to have to wrap it up with 2 or 3 last questions,
Sure.
just to
Okay.
respect people's time.
A question for Matt. Can I employ my spouse and then she apply for a green card based on employment?
No, not really. The reason is that that they want to see that this is a genuine job offer. The way to get a green card is basically you have to advertise the job and show there's no Americans. Nobody believes that you're going to fire your wife. In fact, I don't believe you have the authority to fire your wife. So I would refuse it as well. Pardon the bad joke. But you have to, the person has to be able to be replaced by an American. And since you can't replace your wife, she may replace you, by the way, but that may not, that won't work. It has to be an arm's length employer, and we have to do a legitimate job market test. Next question, sir.
So we finally have a question for me. Ricardo asked, have you identified good franchises in the automotive sector? Yes, we have. The automotive sector, as you probably know, has a lot of different types of businesses, whether it's more focused on auto body repair. There are some great opportunities in the automotive sector. I'd be happy to schedule a consultation around that.
Yeah, and I can call my...
One last question.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if I can answer this. I think it's 3 years, but I'll turn it to you to see if you can. With Grenada and Turkey, what is the lock-in period for leasing your investment? And how easy it's to release the capital after the lock-in period?
I'm not going to try and answer those. I honestly don't know. One of the things is, like, I don't get that involved with the business. I think we would have to investigate that. I think the lock-in period would probably depend. I mean, once you have the passport, you have the passport. I think you can liquidate your asset almost immediately, to my knowledge. But like for Turkey, one of the options is you've got to invest $500,000 in certain investments. And I believe the lock-in period, I just saw it yesterday, was like 3 years or 5 years or something like that. That's a specific situation. Please email us offline, Bernard at Wolfsdorf or P. Findaro at Visa Franchise. Do I pronounce your name correctly, Patrick?
Yeah, Findaro. You did it well.
Great.
Maybe one last question, and then that's it. What is the process of transfer?
You know, look, by the way, Patrick, we had a pretty good response to this. I guess there were like over 200 people registered. So I think what we might do, because we had such an overwhelming with like 3 days of marketing, we just came up with this a week ago. I think what we might want to consider doing is schedule a date for a second one and a third one. We can keep talking about this because, as is obvious, I can talk till hell freezes over. Love answering these questions. We have, how many do we have? We probably have about 10 lawyers in our firm that do E2 visas. We kind of specialize in this. Before, in the old days, we even used to travel with our clients to the consulate to help them with visa applications. Patrick, your last question of the day, sir.
Sure. So an F2 visa holder, what can they do to get an E2 visa?
So the F2 is the spouse of the F1. Answer, if you have the correct passport as listed, one of those 80 countries, you would make an investment in the region of about $150,000. We could either apply at your home consulate, or we could apply for a change of status in the US. Please email me, Bernard at Wolfsdorf. If you're looking for projects, email Patrick. I've emphasized this 3 times, but I tend to repeat myself. We are separate businesses. I hooked up with Patrick because this is a need that our clients have. We don't recommend businesses. We don't do due diligence. Patrick does that. We, of course, stand behind our work, but Patrick has to stand behind his. So what's your email? We will schedule a second day. If this was useful, please tell your friends. We have recorded this. So we will send you a link. Share it with your friends. The E2 is the most fabulous visa. Patrick, I'm ending with one question to you because I don't remember the answer to this. How many
Sure.
E2 visas are issued every year in the United States? How many
I think
E2?
it's around 45,000, and it's
40.
gone up pretty astronomically over the last 10 years. I think 10 years back, it was like 25,000.
Yeah, I remember seeing some chart that you gave me, 45,000 E2 visas a year. Folks, this is a category the government likes because you're investing money, you are creating jobs, and you have the opportunity to live the American dream, make some money, and hopefully do it safely after you've done your due diligence. So on that cheery note, thank you everybody for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure, Patrick. Thanks for your input and
No, thanks
assistance.
to you and your team for all the logistics and handling everything. Really appreciate it.
Well, an absolute pleasure, and look forward to doing the next one because I think there's going to be a very, very strong need for your services, and hopefully demand continues.
For yours as well.
And one final plug, our telephone number is 1-800-VISA-LAW. So when you can't remember my email address, you can't remember Patrick's email address, just remember 1-800-VISA-LAW, VISALAW, and you will get the firm of Wolfsdorf Rosenthal. We look forward to helping you and wish you all a happy and safe day. And until next time, adios. Goodbye.
Thanks again, everyone. Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.